Recording is on.
All right, so today is March 14, 2021, and we're going to continue our discussion on the Desiderata Extinctionati. The first thing I wanted to raise was there was a comment on my channel from Marty McCorkle, and I just wanted to raise it with the group. If you don't know already, this commenter, he's been following our discussions, and so far his comments have been, he's been commenting a lot through my channel. But this latest comment was something I'd like to address with the group, and so I'll start it off. So his latest comment was, he said, "I'm gay. Each and every one of you on this conference should think about what kind of ignorant views you are platforming, even and perhaps as a silent participant in this conference. After this show, I am certain that each of the growingly passive individuals are unsuited to challenge industrial civilization, but you are measurably shaping into a cult whose each career in cultish deterioration may prove fascinating. You're shaping up nicely as backboneless ciphers as you get marinated in standard right-wing memes. I can't help you. You'll have to help yourself. Good luck with that." Yeah.
So, so first of all, I think Marty's a really good guy. I've had a few exchanges with him. I think he's a really kind of salt of the earth kind of guy, but definitely on the left wing. So okay. So the first thing we need to address is the cult. Is like, yes, it's a cult. That's exactly what we're doing. We're building a cult. So I think this is really cool that this has come out, because I've been saying all this stuff over and over, and I'm just going to repeat all the stuff I've said before. But it's really cool because now I finally feel like, finally, you're listening. So everybody up until now, they do, it's infotainment and it's all very cool and it's kind of good sport because you have this identity in this little position and you watch, all your enemies getting beaten up and it's all really cool. And then you say, like, I'll tell you where this goes. Is I'm gonna take it round the houses looking for your ego. I'm prodding with a fucking knife in the ground looking for landmines. And basically I'm gonna find your ego. Everybody that comes anywhere near this game I'm gonna find their ego. And so I'm deliberately looking for them, provoking them, trying to stir them up. Basically, what it is it's demon hunting. It's looking for your ego. And so we said it straight out there. Like Marty comes straight out and says, "I'm gay." It's like, whoa, we just hit the landmine. It's like, I say, so this is the point. It's all about ego. Okay, so what the whole thing of this cult is to do is to find your ego and to help you crush it. We can't really crush somebody's ego without their permission. It's all shamanism, right? All of this is shamanism. And the point of it is that the whole world is going psychotic. I'm telling you that basically there are going to be 10 billion people soon by 2050. By 2030, even earlier, we are heading for a population bottleneck that maybe 0 people come through. This is going to hurt. And you can find out the hard way how this is going to turn out. But there's going to be mass psychosis. So anybody who gets involved in this is just getting ahead of the game, right? So the reason for mass psychosis is the destruction of people's ego. So basically, they're going to have their ego, all their delusions wiped out en masse. There's going to be lots of wailing and gnashing of teeth. And so basically you're just getting an early start. Basically, I would suggest you get an early start. You don't want to do all this lifetime's work in 3 days or something like that. It will be bad. I mean, really as bad as things get. As bad as any humans ever had in our existence as a species. That kind of bad. Much, much worse than Roger Hallam thinks. So, okay, so here again is how this goes down. This is a cult. Now, everything is a cult. right? Everything is a cult. Basically, the mainstream culture that is destroying us, that is destroying the planet, global industrial civilization, let's call it, is a cult. It's a prosperity cult. It came from Ernest Becker's Yen for Immortality. It is an extension, in effect, of the alien cortex. The alien cortex is the seat of our ego. It's the thing that's telling Marty he's gay. So basically, you find that thing, and that's what you work with. It's an obstacle to what we really are, okay? So here's the thing about what we really are. Okay, spoiler alert. We're God, but we don't know it, right? Each ego is an abomination because it is an idol before God. It is saying, I'm not God, I'm gay. And it's saying, like, no one is gay. No one is gay. If you think you're gay, do this. Tell me, okay, take your right ear. Tell me, is that gay? I mean, if I cut it off, would you be like 1% less gay? I mean, is your nose gay? Is your eye, what particular part of yourself is gay? Go and find it. Point a picture. Point to me what part of you is gay, right? And basically tell me, if you lost that, would you be less gay? If I found, have you got a gene? Have you got a gay gene? Could I genetically engineer it out? Could I find that little gene sequence that makes you gay, methylate it out, and you would instantly be, after one injection, you would be not gay. So what is this gayness thing? It's basically, I'll tell you where it is straight out. It's in your alien cortex. It's in the left hemisphere here. It basically, Broca's area has the word gay. And somewhere along the line, you're wandering around, goofing around through life, wandering around like a blind person, stumbling along. And basically, somewhere along the line, you latched onto the fact that I am gay. From there on out, that's the abomination, because you're not. You're God. You are pure consciousness that now has reduced itself to this fucking 3-letter word. So nothing will go right after that. Fuck all. Here's the thing. Gay was invented. Gay was invented recently, fucking recently. Here's an interesting thing. In ancient Greece, there were no gay people. Now, you might think that's fucking weird because you say we have Greek love and you know, the whole idea of homoeroticism and being gay was traditionally Greek. And if you read Socrates and Plato, it just looks like gangbangs left and right with bum chums. And so but there were not a single one of those Greeks that were gay. Why? Because homoerotic love was what they did. It's not what they are. It's only recently it became, these people took this on as a label. And they're saying, here, I'm gay. Stick this label on my forehead. You can almost hear the gas chambers starting up. And you lit them. You lit them. As soon as you put this fucking label on your head that said you're gay, you lit the gas chambers. So this is terribly, terribly important. And I'm so pleased that Marty finally got round all the pissing about and got to the essence of it. But every one of these people playing with identity politics, they're saying now that our savior is that you have to respect my label. I'm saying, like, no, that's an abomination before God. You're putting an idol before God, and it's going to get smashed by just this. The alien cortex itself is self-loathing, right? It will destroy you for the label you put on, because somewhere inside your own alien cortex hates gay, right? Your own alien cortex hates every single label it ever came up with. The alien cortex hates itself. So if you put that label on and you now name yourself that way, it will come around and get you. The thing that put the label on is the thing that gets itself. So now, time and again, people said, like, what Marty's saying is, oh, you cannot get there with these right-wing tropes and stuff. Like, I'm going to go out and get everything that I think will upset you so that I can basically do this rant now and explain to you what this is all about. Because it's, again, I'm repeating myself again and again and again. I said that basically we are essentially a feeling of aham, I am. I am without qualifications, right? The ancient Hindus said that you ahamkara. That means I with attachment, I with a sheath, I with corruption, right? So basically, that ahamkara is ignorance. That is what you're taking away, so the pure light of aham can come through. That's the only way you can ever get in. We don't want to look for utopia, but if you want to look for a utopia where gay people are tolerated, this is the way. You have to get rid of the ego thing. Look, I'll come out right now and tell you straight out, right here, I'll come out of the closet and tell you right now in public, on film, I'll tell you that I am gay. I'm a lesbian. I love women, and I just can't help myself. We all lesbians, and we all gay. Humans are sexual beings, right? Why we pretend we're not is because the alien cortex is trying to suppress our reptilian brains. It's a kind of a mortification of the flesh. And so basically, it's trying to find excuses to actually dominate that behavior in the reptilian brain. So people now are labeling themselves left and right. The alien cortex is going mad. It's labeling itself. People are taking on these labels. They're calling themselves all these names like gay and left wing and woke and all this bullshit, right? It's all bullshit from the alien cortex. But the reason why it's doing it, I mean, it's doing it. The reason why it's doing it is because of a kind of a mortification of the flesh. It's the old-fashioned thing where you whip yourself, right, into submission with like a birch, or one of these guys used to self-flagellate. It's self-flagellation, and you can see the people are doing it with body piercing. They're putting tattoos on. They are branding themselves. These are slaves that brand themselves now. So this is a cult that will liberate you. Our global prosperity cult is a slave system. It gets you to brand yourself now. They used to get slaves. They used to put a gold ring on there. That was the sign of slavery. That's why we have a wedding ring. It's a minor thing to say that now I'm a slave to you. And so basically the institute of slavery, the institute of marriage, the institute of actually master slave signified with the slave band, the gold slave band, is to say that I am shackled. It's a signified...
The bond, the band is the bond.
The band is the bond, yeah. They come from the same root in Sanskrit. So basically, I think that if you go all the way back in the history, it's the first blasted slave takers were Aryans, right? This is all Aryan stuff. And so what these guys were doing was they were taking slaves and they branded them. I mean, there's this guy in this cult, can't remember what this cult is called again. But anyway, he took a lot of women in that cult and he literally branded them and ritualized the pain in it for, psychological reasons I won't go into. But that ritual branding now is the slaves are branding themselves. That's how perfected this system has got. You see, Steven Pinker says violence has stopped because things are getting better and better. No, violence is being perfected. Now, they don't even have the cows branded. The cows have been trained and perfected and bred to brand themselves. And Marty is branding himself. He has found himself a label and said, stick it on my forehead. From there on out, you are prime beef. You will go down, basically, to the butchers and become Soylent Green. That's where you're headed.
What was his sexual orientation had to do with the comment on our video? Because I didn't see...
That's what I said to Michael.
I didn't see any reference to homosexuality in any way. So what was that like? Why did it come up?
Because he smelt the right wing. You see that there were loads
of things. Right wing? I mean, what was the content of the meeting we were on Friday was eminently scientific. There was a few references to some things. Maybe
no. You're not familiar with the trope. You see that one of the reasons why I'm starting to introduce Keith here because basically this is the libertarian right, and so the left is always on about how we all got together and be kumbaya. The left is the intolerant one. They've got this trope going on saying the right is intolerant. It's horseshit. You talk to right-wing people, right-wing libertarians are against the state and the system. They're against global industrial civilization more than the hippies. The whole thing's got inverted since the 60s. Now Michael Moore is crying about how our capital got invaded and stuff. It's like, pinch yourself. You're fucking left wing. You, in the 60s, you were supposed to be invading the capital. And now Michael Moore's got 17 million followers going, oh, they're coming for our capital. And it's like, it's like the conservatives. The left-wing hippies are the conservatives. They trying to conserve the system with solar panels and wind farms and political correctness and all this suppression going on. They conservatives. They are doing the McCarthyism now. We've come complete full circle.
But what was what I don't understand about, because maybe I don't understand much about American politics because I'm European, but that group we were talking, well, that man we were talking to, and some references you were making, I didn't perceive any right or left sort of content.
No, you wouldn't, because you're not familiar with it, right? So it's basically the so the way it goes is on the right and left. On the extremes, you have the extreme libertarian right. It looks very close to the left, the extreme left. You see, what I've always said is we have to rebel. We have to rebel against the system and the state. And what burns me up is the left and the right extremes of the two are very close. You see, you don't know the American libertarian right, so you can quite happily talk to Kevin and stuff, because you don't know. Marty obviously do. But here's the thing.
All right.
You see, neither of them are anarchists. They both come close, but they both haven't got over their authoritarian complex. They both want authoritarians to save them.
Oh, okay.
As time goes on, the left wing, they want, if you look at Roger Hallam and everything XR is doing, they want the state to save them. All XR is doing is a childish temper tantrum saying, "Mommy, save me!" We want justice. We want you to be fair. It's basically
in France, libertarian means anarchist. In France, all the anarchists say they're the libertaire. Libertaire is the name of the magazine. Everything anarchist is libertaire. So I just translated libertarian. Maybe it's completely different. Because France is opposite to they're opposed to the system. They don't want authority. They want the end of the state, and they call themselves libertaire. So I thought it was the same.
Because you know anarchism. You see, so then a libertarian will seem like an anarchist all the way up until they get to individualism. So they're the alien cortex that has a libertarian ego, right? So they are individualists. They're not mutualists. We're anarchists, but they're so close, you see. So they're easy to talk to. But then somebody like Marty on the left is going to be upset because they, in terms of family and in terms of very close to folk, right? Very tribal. Right? So it's but think how close that is to anarchist mutualism. It's just the where they differ is like with blood. So basically, they say if you're blood relative and you're in my tribe, you're related by genetics and by ancestry, then you're in my right-wing libertarian tribe. So if you're white, you're white. But they don't mind other people having tribes. You see, that's what they are very tolerant. They're saying, like, if you're black, I respect you, brother. You must fight for your tribe. That's what we're supposed to do. But they're not mutualists because they say we should all fight and see the best way. Survival of the fittest. It's Darwinian shit comes in. So it's not anarchist because it's not mutualist. They're not. They would. And funnily enough, they would help a black guy, right?
Oh, I had no idea of that. No idea whatsoever, because I don't know American politics at all. I'm just learning this year, really. to understand what's going on across
You don't have to, because basically we're beyond politics. But
how is it in England?
If you say you're beyond politics, that's saying you're left wing. You see what all the stuff that XR is doing, is saying, "Oh, beyond politics." Only a left wing libertarian would say we're beyond politics. It's labeling yourself as left wing. So
how is it in England for that sort of right?
Don't get into the politics. We don't want to go to the politics. We don't want to turn this into a politics. I'm just saying that from the political thing. Let's move away from the politics. The last thing we want to do is politics, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying to explain the background, because you asked. But
It's
go to politics.
There's
nothing stupider than politics. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But all I'd say is this is logical conclusion of this cult of individualism, where everything has become identity or intersectionality, identity politics, woke. Everything is labeled now, isn't it? So this is and that's why he's straight away identifying, oh, this looks right wing. I didn't see the video because it came down before I was able to watch it, but he's saying, I'm gay. And as you say, then to him that equals anything on the right is anti me. And yeah, so.
The video is still on Mike's channel, as far as I checked it this morning. So you could still see it on Mike's channel. And I've copied it to a USB key. So if ever you want to send or
it's on XR Med too. It's actually, you can still see it posted there. But anyway, so let's move beyond this, because there's nothing. Politics is the trap. Politics, they're deliberately atomizing the slaves, and the slaves have to unite. Now the left keeps on saying we have to unite and work together and stuff, and what they mean is they're house slaves. In essence, what the plantation owners, our masters, have done is taken the left and made house slaves out of them. The long march into academia and stuff is really a long march into the plantation owner's house. So now all these guys are house slaves. They've been bought. They want to protect the slave system. So you get like Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is saying, like, the slave system is not wrong. We, as labeled ourselves black people, we just want a better place in the slave system. Now that's a very stupid thing to do, because if you say that, you're saying there's nothing wrong with the plantation system. We just want more of a stake in it. And you say, okay, well, that's cool. But what you've just said is that you're competing, and it's a game of power. So power is legitimate, the hierarchy is legitimate, and where you get to in the hierarchy is just how much force and pushing you do, how much you fight for within the system, within the prison yard. So that's fine. What happens if you lose? What happens if the white people say, okay, if it's a game of power, let's play? What if we crush Black Lives Matter? Then by your standards, you lost. You are the inferior one, and you will have to hew wood and draw water for the rest of your life. Don't be stupid. Don't play this game.
But it's like the feminist.
You're going to win.
Same thing. I think the feminist movement, I had quite a lot of difficulties with women around me because of that, because of this kind of, well, we want to be stronger and like men in this system. We don't question this system. We all are, and it's like, in fact, they become feminized men when they, of the system, when I find it hard to explain because it's quite long for, but I had the same problem with feminism all my life. I just
no, they're the same left-wing things. That basically it's all identity. It's saying my identity is a woman, and therefore I'm going to fight for women.
Yeah.
Regardless of what anybody gets. So you've got a woman ego. So then if you're a feminist, you've identified yourself as woman, and you're going to fight for your ego. The way they keep the plantation going is by getting everybody atomized and fighting against each other. That's how they kept Auschwitz going. they got everybody to work against each other. It's very embarrassing now. If you go and look at why didn't they resist in Auschwitz, or why wasn't there Jewish resistance against the Nazis in Germany, and there are two lines of argument that they've developed, and one of them says, no, it's misreporting. There was a resistance, which is historical bullshit. It's Baudelarism. There was no resistance. They all went meekly to the gas chambers. So then the other one says, no, the other strand is more that they didn't have the option to fight, blah, 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 and basically they were fighting, but they were fighting for themselves individually. They say, yes, that's how the system worked. They could get 8 million people and liquidate them because they got them working against. They had zero solidarity. That's where it came from.
This is exactly it. The powers that be, the system is petrified of collectivism. And have you seen this Adam Curtis Can't Get You Out of My Head, this series at the moment? I mean, this speaks to the heart of that. I mean, he is spot on. They are absolutely afraid of the masses. This, throughout history, this repeats again, doesn't it? This collective action, collectivism, is very powerful.
So in terms of collective rebellion and getting all of these people together, I always say that basically it's the horseshoe theory of politics, that the extreme left and the extreme right, they resemble each other so close. They're just kind of different animals that are, it's almost accidental differences. They're not very deep differences. The problem is, on the right, they will accept the left. If you go, the guys, the Q, can't probably say that Q word. The guys in the Capitol were, if you'd stopped one of them, and in fact, there are some of those guys in military fatigues, the PROUD BOIS. Those guys, I actually saw them. They said something to one of the BLM guys, as they like, also arms. They're like, yeah, we're all brothers. We all got to bring this system down. They were completely accepting of the left. Now, that's not true of the left. Guys like Martin McCairn, the left has suffered this labeling much more than the right. And so then it's just saturated in identity politics. So the intolerance is actually all on the left, because the left will not accept the right. It's all say, we must get together to solve this problem, but not with the fucking right. You say, well, then with who? You say, like, you'll get together with people that just label themselves like you, is all you're saying. And then basically you can expand that to say, well, I'll expand that to other like minorities or fringe people that have fringe labels. And say like, well, yeah, so okay, you've got a rebellion of the freaks. Say like, that ain't gonna take down this system. So basically the left and right need to combine to take down the system. Now, a lot of people, and I think a lot of libertarians would say like, well, the thing is, you've got to be political. You've got to get a lean on and get lean left or right, and basically you've got to fight against wokeism and stuff like that. And I say like, sure. And then what? It's basically the irresistible force, meets the immovable object, and you just have stasis, and we're just stuck in deadlock while this whole, global prosperity suicide cult goes barreling towards the edge of the cliff. So basically, where we headed in terms of climate catastrophe and collapse is this bridge is out, and we're going over into the chasm. We need to stop the train, and or at least just slow it down, just so that there might be survivors. But no one can slow it down, because you have two hands on the wheel. The left hand is pulling this way, the right hand is pulling that way, and the net result is we carry on down the fucking middle, the one place we cannot be. That's where homeostatic, where the homeostatic outcome is the status quo. Now the fucking masters of the plantation figured this out during World War II or earlier. And these fucking meatheads cannot get this. They're all like still fighting. Like, we got to make sure the Democrats win, and we got to make sure. It's like, get over your fucking ego. Take this fucking label off, saying I'm not gay. It's just basically, gay is something you do. It's not something you are. There were no gay people in Greece because basically they said that that was something people did. Basically, we're all human. We all have different preferences. There's nobody that doesn't like their own sex and is turned on by their own sex and the opposite sex to some degree. So basically, you've got to get over this thing that's saying this is something you do. Now, if we're all free, you can do whatever you fucking like. That's what saves gay people and basically makes a world that is if we all let each other do whatever we fucking like. But that cannot happen if we come with our egos, we cannot get there. So we have to ditch our fucking egos or we're never going to get to utopia. Now, we don't want to be idealists because that's all alien cortex and fucked up. But if you want any hope for yourself, you have to get rid of that ego. And that's what we're about. That's what the Sirius Institute is about. I will poke around till I find your ego and then I'll work on it. It's like a demon. So
Gary, could you come in about what Hugh is saying about
No, I was about...
Because I know what you want to say.
Yeah, no, it's all right, because Hugh, you've come to the point. I was getting desperate every minute.
Sorry, I didn't notice.
No, it's fine. I mean, the point is, the entire political and identity discussion, it's just can go on for eternity. You've got to completely undercut it. I mean, if the human race hasn't sorted out that by now, you've got to admit that experiment is dead. It's finished. Like, how long are we going to keep trying it for before we finally admit that it doesn't work? And, I mean, what you've just arrived at now is getting to the fundamental point, which is what underlies that. And what underlies that is this business of this ego identification. And as you've just said, no, it's bringing it back to the point, which is what this supposed cult is all about. So, look, I mean, the past 40 minutes that you've been talking, in a certain sense, do we need to just not even bother having that, wasting the breath on it? Like, because it's and just goes straight to the point, which is how you're going to help these people get over their egos. Because any amount of word or explanation is not going to work for them. I mean, I would imagine if Marty McCairn really believes what he said in the message to Michael, that nothing you've said has moved him because it's just more of the same kind of discussion that doesn't get to the root of the problem, which is there an egoic identity still present? And if there is, that's what needs to be dealt with first. So can I move on to another thing, or do you want to? I want to develop this in a slightly...
I feel like we should beat this to death, because this is really what we're here for.
Okay.
What's the thing you want to go on to?
It's a particular take on that. And the reason I'm on this question of ego demolition, which has concerned me for quite a while, and it's concerned Sophie because it seems to be affecting both of us in a similar manner. And that is the particular approach that you take to the dissolution of the ego, which is a kind of full frontal attack. It's a demolition process. It's like, let's just kick this thing in and completely, like, overwhelm it, overload it, burn it out, blow the fuse box completely, this kind of approach. And what I'm questioning with that is, it doesn't suit me personally. Now, the little caveat I'm going to add, in all fairness, is that I'm aware that the tricks that the ego will pull, and that my inability to accept that personally very easily could just be my ego's defensive strategy. It's saying, oh no, I'm going to defer dealing with this by claiming I'm just saying that because I don't want. I want you to be aware that I'm aware of that. That's why I'm saying it. But the point is, what I was noticing was, and I think Sophie has too, that for people like us with our little identity called HSP, highly sensitive person, you know, whether or not that's our identity or whether this is a valid thing with us, I'm going to leave that hanging for the moment. But I think from an early age, people like us have learned to be defensive or self-protective, simply because we do genuinely get overwhelmed by stimuli more readily than other people do. And I draw your attention back to something that you said in a talk a couple of weeks ago when you were talking about, I think, the bright colours of people in Jamaica and the Caribbean areas, and their music is very sort of jingly, and they use bright colour systems, and people, and you made the point that was because of their rather dulled sensitivity, not because of their. Do you know that you can recognise the line of thought I'm trying to portray to you there? And I think this is what Sophie and I are noticing is that we don't need the loud, we don't need a big kick in the face to do the job. And what's going on is kind of two parallel things here, which you've got to be careful to separate, which is, one is that simply trying to prevent being overwhelmed can look like trying to protect the ego, that the two things could look identical from the outside, but I don't think that they are. I think there's a genuine need for a little bit of, do you want to, you look as though you want to say.
Me?
Yeah,
No,
I disagree.
What I wanted to add is that there is no messing with physical overstimulation and Me Too from a noise, light, people, crowds. There's some people who can take more than other people. That's in our making. Some people come a little bit more. Some people are just like, I mean, if I meet people, I need to spend sometimes days on my own because I need to process it all and to regain my, I know that. And when we are,
not supposed to have it easy.
I know, but I know exactly what Gary is saying too, because the ego is, I know, but
you're trying to avoid a crisis. Don't.
No.
You're trying
it's
not to be.
that.
You're trying not to get overwhelmed, right? What are you trying to achieve? What are you asking me to do? By asking me to be gentler, what are you asking me to do?
There might be that. It might be gentler, yes. It might be that I'm saying. I don't know, but I notice that compared to some other people, I cannot take what other people can take in terms of this psycho thing. So I don't know. I mean, I've noticed in Gary the same reactions, and we're putting it there to you and to the when we're doing some ego crushing, like we're doing all the time. Is there ways to adapt to certain? No.
So the aim is to drive you psychotic, and you're holding back, right? you see, it's like,
what I'm questioning is,
you see. Imagine you're at the back of a bus, and I'm driving way too fast, right? Now you're saying like slow down, and then I can get my composure, and then I can be a better passenger. And I'm sure. I'm not trying to make you a better passenger that way. I'm trying to make you a better passenger so you don't give a fuck. That's the problem, is you're giving a fuck. You must try and get to the point where you say like, okay, Hugh's fucking balmy is going to drive this car as fast as anything. I'm fucked. And then you'll get your release. You will get beyond basically the stimulus. You see, it's you only terrified at the back of the car while you want to live. If you give up and say like, fuck it, I'm done. This is fucked. And then you give up. Bang! That's the release.
but you're still back at we're still back at what's got to happen, not what can be done by the person. And the other thing I wanted to say was, that's not the only means to get at an ego. Like you've got a particular line you're taking, which is your way of approaching it. You know, I mean, for instance, you know, I think what you said a couple of weeks ago was when we were doing that little meditation, and you know, there was like a moment of awareness, and then there might be another moment of awareness and another moment of awareness, and then after some time, all these little blobs will coalesce until all of you has become aware all of the time. And I kind of, I mean, I was trying to think my way through this, and in terms of getting people to be aware, to, you know, another approach could be to Trojan in awareness of your ego, so that your moments of awareness, like instead of trying to demolish the thing from the outside, you know, get it by stealth. Get it to you know, if you're learning islands of awareness, you're suddenly you I don't know, you know, go on.
You can't get there like that. It's a leap of faith, right? You see, I can only take the horse to water. I can't make it drink, but I can basically put it in a situation where it has fuck all options. So, I've said before, basically, I can walk you out onto the wing, but you're saying, like, you know, is there another way? Because we don't like be hanging on the wing here where we feel awful. And you're saying, like, yeah, it's basically, I cannot make you let go, but with grace, you will hang around, and basically until you cannot cope any longer, and then snap. And then you voluntarily let go of the wing, not knowing whether you can fly or whether you're going to crater and make a hole in the ground. And that's your liberation. But you liberated when you don't give a fuck about yourself. You see, I understand that basically there's this kind of Greta, like autistic sensitivity and overload to stimulus, right? But you have a special task in that your liberation is saying, like, I don't give a fuck about the noise. Somewhere in autism is this idea, it's hidden in the word aut. Basically, it's autonomous. It's basically saying, I am in this little bubble. And you're saying, Hugh, I can't take the pressure in this bubble. And it still applies. It's the same as the average guy who has a thick armor-plated shell on the bubble. And basically, it's the same thing applies. It basically, you have to let the bubble pop. But it does it under pressure. You just basically have to go through the sound barrier. It is not a gradual thing where you have these islands of awareness and insight, and they eventually coalesce, and this all happens. In a way, that is happening in the background, but you shouldn't be conscious of it or try to get there. You shouldn't be looking for comfort. You see, if I made it comfortable, I'd be doing you a terrible disservice. It's the aim is to traumatize you, right? So it's to put you through PTSD. So sure, you it's not a pleasant ride.
You've already got that one.
Yeah, but the point, I mean, the point is, like, you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was going to withdraw for a little while, and we had a conversation about that. Although it came around for different reasons, but I was aware after I'd gone quiet for a few days that actually the pressure from you didn't go away just because I was no longer tuning in, because there was such a massive backlog of what was going on. You know, I mean, there was just so much stuff to work through that simply withdrawing from the overload doesn't really reduce the overload that much.
Yeah, right.
Genuine, especially if you're making a genuine effort to process it. That if you're not just sort of reading down this stuff, going, "Oh yeah, that's interesting," and sort of throw it away. That if you're really taking it to heart, if you're really trying to understand things that you've said and the reasons why you posted them and all this kind of thing. There's an enormous amount of work involved in really dealing with that fully and doing credit to it.
A number
The
of
other
people,
side of it is,
a number of people have passed the point where they can't back out anymore.
That's what I want to get to. Yeah, I'd like to get to that, which came out in when I was reading that Wikipedia article about the EST training, and in that, the people are locked in a big room. They're not allowed to go out. At set times they're allowed to go to the bathroom or something like that, but they can be there for extraordinarily long periods of time. They're kept in this environment, and the pressure's kept up on them, and they can't escape from it. And you could say, well, people could just object and demand to be let out, and I suppose they would be let out, but then again, it's probably costs them a lot of money to come along for the weekend and all this sort of things. There's something that's keeping them imprisoned there, so that they're more or less, one way or another, forced to continue being pressurised. And, this is where, in a way, what you're doing is successful as a cult-like thing, because the people who are coming along here form a kind of a loyalty and attachment to you, and you think, okay, well, it's all too much of Hugh, I can just walk off. But then you realise that it's not that easy, that you've got an investment in your relationship with Hugh and what's going on here.
You've already heard too much. It'll plague you. It'll unsettle
exactly.
you. You'll walk off with a deficit, right?
That's it.
And
yeah.
that's
you end up you feel you're worse off. You feel worse off for having gone away. And then you realise that, you actually, well, for a start, you realise that the mechanism that keeps cults together, where you start to realise that you can see that happening in yourself and see what it's happening in this little microcosm that we've got here. It's all right. I said to Sophie before the meeting.
Hugh wouldn't let us off. So,
no, Hugh won't. But he won't.
I will say this. I will give you this much relief: is I really feel for you guys. I really feel what you're going through.
Well, the other thing is, though, look,
I wouldn't be doing my job if I wrote it down. So,
the other question is, though, to look at it from the other point of view. If supposedly this enhanced sensitivity is there, is that people like Sophie or I should be the first ones to crack.
Yes.
Does it make sense?
Yes, it's a gift.
Because you should be able to split us open faster than the other tough nuts around here.
We already have, and we don't know.
Well,
you might. No, but you will know. You will know it's quite traumatic. But you have to break, and you're close to breaking, perhaps. But
can I add something
please.
to add, because I think you've already touched on this, Hugh, way back, and this is the activity or the training that's close to me, and it's the detachment technique, the 1880. Like, I know you talk about the cults and how cults can bring people together, and maybe that's just part of the cults of an ego. But isn't the next step to be able to break away from the cults, if possible? Because
only once you've reached enlightenment, so only once you're liberated.
Exactly.
You see, the 1880 doesn't work for personalities like Sophie and Gary because the decibel level is too high. They can't. You see, at some stage, you'll punch through the sound barrier, and then it'll all be quiet and plain sailing, and the volume will go down to nothing, and you'll be free of it. But the sensitivity is high, when you're reaching that pressure point. But there's no goal to get to. It's like, even if you went this far, and crumbled, right? Without, basically, even if you aborted the birth, this is all rebirth. It's shamanistic rebirth, right? But even if you aborted now before the end of the birth, it would still serve you well. Yeah. So as much as you've done already, you've got wasta in the bank, right? So even if you fucked off now and never came back, it's hard because a lot of people have passed the point where they can't leave because they would have a deficit. There would be something hanging. It's like incomplete work. What that incomplete work is Thanatos. It's not Thanos, although Thanos is named after Thanatos. It is the alien cortex's death wish. The alien cortex really wants the end to suffering, and it does know deep down that it is the cause of the suffering. So what keeps you here is this kind of suicide. Now, this is the important thing for, very, very important. I laid all this out, and particularly for Marty McCairn and stuff, I laid all this out in like episode 4. I don't think anybody heard. If you go back and watch it again, especially now after this and Marty, I would suggest, if he's listening, to go back and listen carefully what I say. Now, one of the very, very important things there is not to do physical self-harm. You see, a lot of the stuff, the pressure you're feeling is mental, and it's emotional stress, but it's not physical. If it, hopefully, it won't turn physical. I mean, it is possible. I won't scare you with ways it can go physical, but I don't think you're going to have a heart attack watching my reading XRMed. At least I hope not. Look at Sophie's in the duckbill. Look. If you got to that where you having sweaty palms and your heart is racing, then you must go outside and do the exercise, the primary exercise to ground yourself, and just take deep breaths and stuff, and then come back to it when you're ready.
I've started to do them before the meetings.
We should start and end the meeting with this. We should actually do it in the middle.
Yeah, because it's just but they work extremely well, and I'm very thankful for that.
We'll get to doing it before starting and ending the meetings, but if you do that, people watching the video, it looks immediately like a cult and it turns it off. But where we're getting to, if we continue with this, is what Gary says, is to make inner circles, and also basically made paid for, pay to play kind of thing. So in one of the inner circles where they would be really private, then you'd start doing that kind of stuff. But it's like, as I say, everything is a cult. Like XR is a cult. XR is not a knowledgeable cult. They understand that our global prosperity cult is heading for destruction. So Roger Hallam is doing the shamanist job. He's not a very good shaman because he just doesn't have the knowledge. But he is starting XR, which is a cult, and it's to break away from this global collective suicide cult. XR will wind up pretty much the same as Deep Adaptation and Jem Bandel, and that's basically Kool-Aid in the jungle. Now, the very important thing that I'm trying to stress that I say in episode 4, and I would say now, is that you can't do physical harm. It's absolutely important that you remember that, because what this is supposed to drive Thanatos and drive you to suicide. The reason we don't want you to blow your fucking brains out. The last thing that happens is that you want to cut your wrists or take the phenobarbital or jump off a bridge, because that's the alien cortex in its final death throes. It's basically, it's doing its final trick. And that's to say, like, if you kill me, I kill you. And so you don't kill the alien cortex. The alien cortex makes sure it annihilates the organism. So it's basically the devil tricks God to make it into metaphysical. It's like Moriarty and Sherlock Holmes meet, and they go down together over the Brandenburg Falls. That's the loss. So that's conventional suicide. Suicide is not bad. It's just that basically, if you make it physical, it's for keeps. This is suicide where nobody gets hurt except the alien cortex. And after you've committed suicide, the alien cortex is not there anymore. So it's a victimless crime. So, but to get there, you have to be absolutely certain on this. Now, this means no physical harm whatsoever. So since Marty raised this thing about being gay, that's where we nailed his ego. He basically, he stuck his ego above the parapets and bam, we got it. So now this is important because included in this is a gender alteration and stuff like this. If you go through this, you won't know whether you are Arthur or Martha. As the alien cortex, all these things will challenge your identity, including your sexual identity and every fucking fiber in your body. Now, if you stall in the program, if you know, it's pure muckyo to say like, well, thanks you, I've been through all of this and I found myself and I'm a woman. It's like, well, no, I'm going to cut my balls and dick off. It's like, no, fuck, no. Look, if you're trans and you've already cut your balls off, look, you just take it as a war wound. but that's not where we should be going. You need your balls, basically. Your balls are a little powerhouse. This takes energy. You have to build up the energy like a capacitor, and realization is when they blow the stack. It's literally a rewiring of your brain. It's basically all the pieces crackle.
Yeah.
You have an epileptic fit. In other words, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of power in this fine energy, and basically you're taking sexual energy and transmuting it into this transformational energy. Is basically spiritual energy. Now, if you cut your balls off, you're running at a fucking deficit. Testosterone is kind of gross energy and stuff. It's not, I'm sorry to use fine and gross energy because it's just crystal. Yeah, but it's basically, reptilian brain, stuff. But it is a powerhouse. You can transmute it into. So that's the reason why if you're in an ashram and you're doing this, basically you have to stay celibate, not because of some Puritan fucking ideal. It's to build up your frustration and energy. It's exactly what I'm doing with you. Basically, you need to box in the alien cortex and hold the pressure cooker till it just blows. And that's that. And so one of the things is sexual frustration. So it's all these kind of frustrations is, just crank, put the lid on, keep the boil, basically, and eventually it's intolerable, and you blow, and that's it. That's birth. Hello, I'm reborn. But you can go off half cocked, right? A lot of people go off half cocked, and it's like, well, it's as good as you can do. But you really, if you have a good shaman, and so I'm saying the best shaman of all is yourself. Be your own guru, right? But for your sins, you've taken me on as a guru.
Well, the thing is that we're very fortunate with you in the for the most part, for most people.
well, speak later. It's early days.
No. I mean, in a practical sense, that most people don't have personal access to a guru. Like for instance, for most of my time before encountering you, all spiritual teachings came out of the books that some dead person had written. It was all,
not many enlightened people, and the ones around know enough to shut up. But my feeling is that they have to come out of the shadows now, because this is going to be brutal.
This is the urgency of change. Yeah. So, well, I think too, the other thing is, I think the old saying is, that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But the other way of looking at it too is that the times are now necessitating the teacher to appear. It's an external process, external thing drawing that in as well.
That's the conclusion I came to. I came to the conclusion that it used to be kind of optional, and personal.
It's
And
not
so, like,
now.
because
No.
if you want to become the Buddha, well, you can become the Buddha. But I mean, the world is not going to go to pieces.
No.
But now it's different. The game has changed, and this is kind of like the end game now. So it's
Well, this is critical, you know.
It's yeah, exactly. It's no longer optional.
Mm.
So enlightenment is no longer optional. I think that's where we've headed. It's kind of like it's enlightenment or extinction. It's kind of like getting a bit binary. And
All right. Well,
so
this is. Can I?
yeah, it's changed. The rules have
What I
changed.
want. Yeah. No, that's right. Look, even back in the 1960s, Krishnamurti had a message that he said, look, he said this is the time. You know, I mean, this can't be held off any longer. If you're serious, the change has got to be made. What I wanted to just move a little bit, just to discuss, like, for instance, the interview with Kevin McCairn, and Michael's done some work there thinking about getting other people. And I realise this is tied up with the possibility of making a little bit of income for the ARG and that kind of thing. But on the other hand, I am concerned that it's leading us away from the spiritual focus of the group. And I just want to know how do you see that playing out? Like, how are we going to juggle?
Not so much. For me, I got a result. So Marty is a result. That's for me. That's a result.
I see.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You see, this is just. You see, I'm just digging for people's ego. So this is, you know, if everybody's a bit too on the left side and stuff, you know, get a Nazi in. Like, let's interview David Duke. And if
but are we better? I mean, because the trouble with that is it's just like a gladiatorial spectacle. And you know, we're better working at a more personal level, given that there's just a small group of people here.
You got to do both, right? You got to do both. You can't. Well, it's basically, you know, two lines of duty: yourself and the world. It's not. We're not. None of us are individuals, right? So it's basically we all just fucking neurons in this huge emergent neocortex, and you know, it's no neuron is an island to itself. So you know, the transformation of each one of the neurons has to be cognizant of the transformation of the rest of the neural net and the mesh network of human society. So no, what happens now in terms of the internet age and stuff is that you can't have enlightenment in the dark somewhere up in an ashram up on the Himalayas anyway. Basically, now the enlightenment has to be done in open forum. It's been coming a long while. You see, enlightenment used to be subversive and personal, and so it was done in the quiet, in isolation, and in secret. Now, all the secrets have been trickling out, and basically until now, there are virtually none left. The reason why they didn't want the secrets out in the old days is because the alien cortex has defenses against them. It's pre-armed against them. So, for example, if I tell you a koan like the sound of one hand clapping is now a corny old cliche. It's a corny old cliche because our alien cortex is used to it now. It's no challenge. It's just it's basically that spell. It's a spell and it's lost its power. But if you told that if that was a koan that only initiates who actually joined some esoteric cult somewhere up in the mountains knew about, they would encounter it for the first time, and they would be naked in front of that koan. It would be quite powerful. Now it's very hard to say, okay, go and sit in front of the wall and I'll give you this koan, listen to the sound of one hand clapping. People would just laugh and walk out and say, this is corny as fuck. Well, so then that's a tool out of the shaman's toolbox that's just been trashed. Now, they've all been kind of trashed that way. There's nothing that isn't corny. There's nobody that hasn't heard Alan Watts. Everybody's sprouting all these secrets all over the fucking internet.
But I think that the meeting we had with Kevin was on a Friday, last Friday, and it was very different. We were inviting somebody to enlighten us a little bit on code words that we've talked about, and but that was it. I mean, you did, especially you, Hugh. You started to tell him a little bit more about our group and what we were doing and stuff, but that didn't go very far because we didn't really exchange. But I think that if we keep the format that Mike had of the idea of inviting people we're interested to hear, like Lear or James C. Scott or other people like that, we could do that on a different meeting. There could be another option instead of the Sunday where we could continue. You know what I mean? So we would be.
Oh, yeah, that's how I think of it. Yeah, I was thinking of it exactly like that. Yeah, I was thinking these are extra things, and basically they would be kind of additional material.
It was really good. I thought Friday was. It was nice to open the circle a bit and share a bit with other ways between ourselves, and it's nice to have this input, and maybe somebody might just suddenly be interested because these people have an audience, and maybe I don't think we want to have too many people in this, only people who are really, really, really attuned and really interested. So it would stay quite rather intimate, and it would stay concentrating on the spirituality and other issues like the ARG that we talk about. But yeah, we should maybe do a Friday or another day meeting with guests and maybe look at monetizing all this too, Gary, because I think that's still a good idea. You know.
Sorry, Sophie, I just missed that last little bit. What did you say? Maybe
the monetizing is
to
explore if we start to expand a bit what we do in terms of interviews.
Yeah, I think Gary's right. We must make rings of, basically more and more insiders, and but it's a cheap trick because people's primate brains, they love. It's just like any old club. It's like any old nightclub. They have the the exclusive area, and everybody wants to get into the exclusive area. That's why they have it.
That's fun. If you play with it and you know it, it's fun. It's primate. It's
But it's standard cult technique, right? It's very very standard. It's just it's cults 101.
So this is the inner circle now.
What?
This is the inner circle. So.
Yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, basically you have the inner circle, and you restrict access, so people have to actually progress along degrees and stuff. It's just everybody's done it from the Freemasons, so everybody in the. I think the time is to start doing it, and then we should have interviews with people like that. So all those guys, they're doing the same work in a different way. You see, not everybody has the same knowledge in terms of what's actually going on, but a lot of people have instinctively, and in essence, they're just people that care about the truth. And that's, people working for the truth. And it's like, they can have huge blind spots and shit, but the stuff doesn't really matter. Everybody comes in with an ego, but the fact that there are people that are working for the truth beyond their ego is like, oh, that's fucking golden, man. It's like, don't quibble. It's like, don't look a gift horse in the mouth.
But are we going to meet with Kevin again next Friday? Is there something on the line? Okay.
Yeah, we said in the last one we would.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You see, everybody can progress together. It would be amazing if more and more of these groups actually got together. And it really is the XR kind of thing about the big tent, but you can't just have a big tent and then invite everybody in and say, oh, come one and all, and no matter who you are, bring your dog and we're all in this together. So like, No, we're not. It's basically we're all at cross purposes. You basically got to get into a cage fight. That big tent has to be a cage fight, and you've got to sweat out the truth. You don't just get it for free. It's like, we're in a crisis. We all have to get together. We can do glad hands, and everybody's going to join our cult. It's like, no, they're not. It's basically you got to go slowly and forget about the outcome. We're not going to save this fucking planet. It's doomed. But we're not going to save ourselves. We're doomed. But the work goes on, but you have to do the work. You saw what happened with Roger Hallam. Roger Hallam thought like he could do an end run over what he called the obstructive left to get to the middle class and then have a revolution and say like, okay, so Roger, it all worked. It's 2018. XR did a wonderful thing and overthrew the government. What do you have now? Another government. Who's it filled by? Same old shitheads. It's like, we haven't got anywhere. No shortcuts. You got to do the hard graft. You got to sweat out all this fucking bullshit. And where this bullshit comes from is the alien cortex. There are no fucking shortcuts. You've got to do the hard work. There's no royal road to salvation, Roger. And so the work XR should be doing, in the work they are doing, incidentally, they're just clueless. But look, in China changed the world. Look what XR has done. They changed themselves. And that's what we're here to do. So it's basically, one decade at a time. But time is getting short, and the number of decades is growing at the rate of 100 million every 9 months. So it's like things are not looking good. But anyway, we just carry on in our own little corner, and forget that the Titanic is sinking. We just use the fact that the Titanic is sinking for primary task A, which is enlightenment, and stop being such a fucking idiot. But you can't fix stupid, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, I guess. But so how long have we gone? We've gone over an hour. So have we covered this enough?
Yeah. Look. Yeah, I don't know if there was something else you wanted to move on to, or I was just thinking back to what you said about how all of the formerly esoteric spiritual knowledge is all very well known, and all the secrets are out, and of course that koan that you use the example of there, one hand clapping. But plenty of people hear that and say, oh yeah, I've heard that. I wonder how many of those people have really been stopped by that. They're just digesting that with their brains.
Oh yeah, that's an old cliche from Hollywood. So it's lost all its power.
I don't think it has. I think if anyone genuinely took that on the first time they heard it.
No, the reason is they won't take it on. They won't take it seriously.
That's what I mean. I mean, my point is that it doesn't matter that it's out everywhere and everybody knows about it, because it's just as powerful, because so very, very few people are actually going to.
The problem is that they won't put it into practice. You see,
that's what I'm saying. That they won't recognise that there's something there they get what it is, and therefore it doesn't work on them the same way. They just miss it completely.
Oh, it's a pearl, all right. It's just the swine are crushing these pearls. So basically, the swine are getting more and more swinish.
Yeah,
and those pearls are getting trampled harder and harder. So now you have to, start throwing boulders in front of these swine.
Is it a question though sometimes I think that the only people who are going to come to this kind of understanding are people who were quite susceptible to taking that path anyway. In a way, you're not reaching anyone new. You're only reaching the people who are somehow or another already on a spiritual quest.
No. My thinking is that there's about to be a glut of new arrivals. You see, this is kind of a gift for enlightenment now as the world goes. You see, in the old days, people weren't like millenarians, or not millenarians, millennial. The guys in like 1000 AD that all thought the world was going to end in the Y2K. It's always been very useful to have a doomer deadline and say that the end of the world is coming. That's it puts the alien cortex into crisis.
Pushes things to their crisis. Yeah.
But they were all not very plausible. Now it's looking really real. So what you've got to assume is people will be lining up around the block soon, asking for meaning to life. You see, what scares the bejesus out of me is the suicides are going to start soon. And so not only the suicides, but it's. I mean, let me just describe what I think is going to happen. Is basically the psychopaths are going to get crueler. The self-destruction. I mean, already. When I look around at the youth tattooing themselves, labeling themselves and stuff, this is the start of their own gassing in Auschwitz. But
the suicide rate is absolute. Nobody's talking about it since the COVID because we know what the headlines are. But in the medical profession, there's alerts everywhere. The people we have in Ireland there who help on phone lines, like we have an organization called the Samaritans. It has to be very Christian in here, but they answer the phone for people who are they're completely overwhelmed. They're actually looking for volunteers. It's the amount of youth suicide at the moment, even in the county where I live, has never been seen.
See, these people have no knowledge. So they're doing harm. The Good Samaritans are evil. They're evil. And the reason why is they're stopping people committing suicide. I mean, it's not their fault. They're trying to do good. But what they should be saying to people is saying, you want to commit suicide? Oh, fucking A. You should commit suicide. But one thing, not physically. Don't do it for real. That would be about, you can't undo that. Let's not do that. Let's just like hold off, but commit suicide. You want to die. Die. You fucking need to die. You know you need to die. You know you want to basically. But people want to commit suicide. They're fixated on one particular thing. So they will have a method, like they want to blow their head off or they want to get off a bridge. What it is the alien cortex has objectified something as and ritualized as an escape route. And so basically you don't want it to take that escape route, whatever its fetish is, a revolver or pills or something like that. But
the tsunami of suicide is already started. What you was to answer to what you was saying.
But they shouldn't stop it.
It's happening now everywhere.
They shouldn't stop it. They should basically apply psychology and say everybody should be pushed further into it. They're all trying to provide relief. You see, it's like being in World War I and stuff. It's the same thing as what you guys were asking for, is for relief. You're saying, no,
I agree.
When you're getting somewhere, you want to knuckle down. Basically, if all the soldiers in World War I, they have medics running around giving them relief. You're saying, you're not doing a favor. The guys in Auschwitz had doctors that gave them relief. They were part of the problem. If the soldiers in trenches in World War I had no relief, had no chance of being patched up, they would rebel. World War I would have been over the first Christmas. Why? They keep perpetuating the system. They give them the relief and send them back into the front lines. They make intolerable tolerable. So you have to say, no, we must make the intolerable more tolerable, intolerable, so you crack. And it's only crack. We have a psychotic break that we have a prayer as a species. So we're on the cusp. We kind of neither Arthur or Martha. We kind of right in the fork in the road. Unfortunately, we've toasted the planet, I think, too far.
Yeah,
so
but unfortunately, they're doing it. They're giving these people drugs, or else they're rejecting them and they're turning to alcohol or other type of toxics.
Yeah.
It's so the way it's handled, I agree, is completely crazy. And medicalized and psychotherapized and everything that you want to try to not go in the right direction. But the numbers are frightening. The numbers.
Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. But one of the things they're going to be going for analgesics. They're going to be going for drugs. They're going to be going for cults. And so basically, I'm saying that basically you want to set up a first aid station as a cult. Open the doors, and when they come in, basically tell them, like, you've just wound up in the worst place you could possibly imagine. This is the Hotel California, and you come out of here dead. Now, you can either do that walking, or you can do that on a stretcher. But if you come out walking, it means you don't do yourself any physical harm.
Hugh, can I ask a question? I want to ask a question. I think in the last meeting, you did mention this thing about the self-mutilation before, and I've been trying to just find a note I wrote, but it's not there. I was wondering about that. In that, are these people simply looking for a genuine experience? In other words, their lives are so alienated and alienating that in terms of their self-mutilation, that they want to have a feeling of an authentic experience. I don't know. I'm not explaining this very well.
No, that's the conventional. The conventional psychotherapeutic interpretation is that people are cutting themselves. They want to turn mental pain into physical pain. It's a bit of a cop-out. My interpretation of it is it's a control narrative. So in terms of the laid brain, it's the alien cortex is trying to get control of the other layers. And so a lot of people, I have a friend who's trans, and what she now basically had her balls cut off as a control narrative. It basically there's this kind of obsessive kind of paranoia of chaos, of disorder, and so she's obsessive about control, and basically it's a kind of an OCD where you're scared shitless of not being or not being in control of a situation. It's kind of the same as psychopaths. All our masters are the same. You get a lead panic from this. So in trying to avoid a lead panic, some people can associate that with, say, the genitals, and then they will say, basically it works. It's described very well by Catullus with Attis and Cybele. So if you look at why Catullus self-castrated, or Attis self-castrated, is because it says, Catullus says it quite openly. It says basically it's because of hatred of Venus. So it's like women are the trap, right? So the alien cortex says, I'm going to be trapped and enslaved by a woman. I'm going to lose control. They're going to take some of me.
Yes, I see.
You see, in terms of an orgasm, the French call it like le petit mort.
It's
basically the little death. And so it's basically it's Samson and Delilah. It's Samson and Delilah. In Samson and Delilah, Delilah's cutting Samson's hair. It's like, that's not the translation. The correct, it's a metaphor. It's really saying she's castrating him. So she keeps him domesticated. She keeps him castrated. She keeps him infantilized. This is endemic now in our society, this Delilah syndrome. And then basically they keeping Samson under control. Samson, in essence, represents the reptilian brain. And so cancel culture is also that. It's cutting. It's cutting people down to the deplatforming. It's basically, that's why I say, it's the triple D thing. It's basically deprogramming, basically debunking and debagging. They basically it's a female narrative of getting control of the male, represented by the reptilian brain running amok. And so that's the theme that you get on the left with this capital riot, is like, oh my God, this is the reptilian brain and these males running amok. I've got to get them under control. And the instinct for the mammalian brain is to cut off their masculinity, basically reduce the power in the reptilian brain. And so people can do that not only to others, which is cancel culture, is in the essence of cancel culture is castration and depowering, it's domination. But people can do that to themselves. And a lot of trans people, at least the ones that I know, that's their narrative, is they're trying to get control of their bodies. It's a kind of a self-loathing. They don't like the fact that the sexual attraction leaves them open to Delilah. It leaves like Attis is going to be consumed by Cybele. So in order to free that bond and to break the shackles of that ambivalent attraction that they cannot keep control over, then in an effort to get control of the situation, they cut their balls off. And they're basically, by castrating them, they can try and free. It doesn't really work, right? I never really seen it work. If you look at the Gali, the priests of Cybele and stuff, all they're doing is they don't really even lose sexual attraction often. It generally just gets diverted in some other way, and they become equally slaves to, like, you know, chocolate and food and control and stuff. You will see other outlets that all they do is they upset their hormonal balance and send them off in a new direction. So it doesn't really work, and that's why I'm saying is if you go through the kind of challenges I'm putting you, they'll challenge your ego, and you might find yourself all over the place, and you might find yourself feeling that you're male or female, and you get gender dysphoria, but you should get all sorts of dysphoria. The thing is, just go with it. Don't do any irrevocable step that basically you can't undo later. This is part of the butterfly's transformation, or the pupa's transformation into a butterfly. So don't do any steps in your metamorphosis that you can't ever back out from.
Not reversible. Yeah, okay. Can we move this a little bit? Which is what I was thinking the other day, was that one of the major things that you've said, which I had never encountered before, which I think was a extremely important point, is that you had introduced the notion of the male psychosis and the eupsychosis, and I think at one stage I had said to you that some quite severe life experiences, and that looking back on that now, I can see that what I did was sticky tape myself back together afterwards. And of course, you said, well, it was the worst thing you could possibly have done. You should have just let yourself fall apart, you know. But I was thinking about that later, and I thought to myself, the reason why I sticky taped myself back together was because that seemed like the only option there was, that you were either going to become a classic Hollywood raving loony, which seemed like too fearful of a pathway to go down, or you were going to have to make the effort to put your life back together somehow. And, you know, I think an important point that you've made is by presenting people with the possibility of the eupsychosis, is that, yeah, your sort of conventional notion of yourself is going to fall apart, and it is very messy, but the other side of it isn't necessarily what you think it is.
So we're in a terribly horrible environment for this work, because you're not permitted to go psychotic in our society. Basically, we're in a slave culture, and the narrative is whether you're productive or not. So we've degenerated. What people like Steven Pinker don't realize is we've degenerated so badly that we don't have the freedom to be psychotic. We don't even have the freedom to be strange, and it's happened very quickly. So any deviant behavior is now medicated out of existence. The medication is also a castration negative. It's basically chemical cuts. It's instead of doing, a dramatic cutting of the balls, which is too violent and too spectacular. Instead, they've perfected it. Now they do 1,001 little chemical castrations in your brain. But it's exactly the same thing, and it's the same motivation. But the problem is it's critically dangerous now, because if you the only thing is, are you a productive slave or unproductive? If you're a broken slave, they basically they're going to make mincemeat out of you.
Can I tell you something about this personal? And Gary has said that he well things of his past, but I'm not taking the group as a therapy thing. It's not that at all. But an example that I can exactly remember is after I had my first child, I had what you call a postnatal drip, like we call it depression. You know, it's not
depression.
Yeah. And my first child, and I was 28 or something, and I had been. I was supposed to go back to hospital. I was a medical student, so I was supposed to go back training, and I had this baby, and I just was crumbling apart because I wanted to be with the baby, and I felt my instinct was to stay with my baby and feed my baby. And the pressure around family, university was, go back, you're an intern, you have to go back to hospital. And for a month, I was pushed completely to the brink because I had to put her in a place, and I couldn't. So I fell apart, and I had to stop work, go back to her. And at the time, I was very young, and my family and colleagues tried to medicate me, to give me an antidepressant type of thing, very strong at the time, so that I could function again and be a good medical student and go back. And what happened to me at the time is that I took that thing. I remember it completely messed up with my brain. But after maybe a month or 2 weeks, I collapsed. I had I lost consciousness. I didn't take any drugs. I didn't drink. I just the fact I had a complete blackout and I have 3 days out of my life where I don't remember. And the only sane person around me came to the house and took away every medication. After a couple of weeks, I was back to myself completely. But I've never forgotten this, because it was my body, my brain, everything was completely fighting against this thing. And I've never forgotten that. And it does that to everyone, except if you're very sensitive, you will probably have an episode like I did, because it was the only thing that was doing it to me was these drugs that at the time it was not SSRIs, it was even antique antidepressant that were very, very strong. But nobody in the medical world would understand why I passed out. There was never an explanation, never. You know, and I know why. It's because it was given to somebody who didn't need them. You know,
well, I mean, I would interpret it as the 4 layers of your brain rebelling against your alien cortex. That's how they rebel. Especially, it's if you it's trying to tell you we've evolved for obvious reasons to take care of our kids, and postpartum depression, they treat it. And basically postpartum depression, according to me, is your body saying, like, stay at home, look after the baby. You're not supposed to feel all chipper and clicking your heels and running out into the world. It's like you're supposed to stay at home and feed the fucking baby. Now we like, the baby goes on a bottle, you get a nurse, you have to go back to work. We're nuts. We're fucking nuts in the male psychotic way. But because our narrative is a controlled narrative, and we're not permitted to say that we are collectively insane, then basically you don't have the luxury of that they did in the past of basically going insane without people committing you. So if you go and look at, like, say in ancient Greece, like a Diogenes used to masturbate in the street and stuff, and nobody cared. They just say, like, oh, fuck Diogenes. And then, but like, you go and masturbate in the street of Athens today on the exact same spot that Diogenes stood in, and see what the fuck happens to you. Like, Diogenes went down in history as one of, the most evolved humans that we've ever had. And, Alexander the Great came up to him and said, sort him out. This is Alexander the Great, biggest empire in history. And Alexander the Great spoke to Diogenes for a few moments and just said, if I were not Alexander, in other words, if I didn't have this big ego and Alexander written over me, across my forehead, I would be Diogenes, which is about the best the ego can say was, "Oh fuck, I fucked up, backed the wrong horse. Should have been Alexander. Now I'm fucked. Should have been Diogenes." But Diogenes used to walk around in the street, naked if he felt like it, jack himself off in public just for the
Was
fun
he
of
a
it.
stoic? I can't remember.
What?
Was he a stoic?
Yeah, he lived in a barrel.
Yeah.
Was more an
Yeah,
Epicurean
Stoic,
than a Stoic in a way. Well, he was between the two schools, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a complete anarchist, but you can't do what he did. Well, you can, but this is the thing that I want to say to what you're saying, Gary, is you have to be, you can't be cautious that way. You have to risk your all. Even if it means getting sectioned or becoming homeless or whatever, it's really dangerous, because if they get hold of you and medicate you, that's the end of everything. That's the worst place you can get to, and you're not going to be enlightened under that regime. You're just plain old fucked. So you have to be cautious in a weird way. You have to be cautious that they don't. You can go through your rebirth without them getting, which is now forbidden. It's banned, rebellious. So you have to get some safe place where you can go through your transformation and
without them finding you. Yeah.
without them finding you. So you need some excuse to do this. That's where going to the South American jungles and stuff makes sense if you go through, But there are loads of excuses. You can do what Gail Bradbrook did and say she had ayahuasca in South America. Anyway, but the thing is that you don't want to preserve yourself by stopping yourself. Say, "Oh, I don't want to be insane." That's their narrative. Say, like, "No, I do want to be insane." And basically,
No. The point I was making was that the point I was making is not that I didn't want to be insane, but it was that you had removed, in a sense, the fear of insanity, because you had sort of nullified the conventional social description of insanity by suggesting that your breakthrough will come to the eupsychosis, where the breakthrough, not the breakdown, basically, is what you were suggesting. It's not, people don't know that. They only know one narrative, which is the breakdown, the dissolution of you. You're a mess. The men in white coats have got to come and take you away, and that's kind of the end of your story, And you'd be very lucky if you.
The problem is they're not wrong. The problem is they're not wrong. There is a real danger in that, and that could be the end of your story.
Oh yeah. This is what you're just saying. If this is coming on, don't let anyone find you.
This I would recommend that. So there's a culture of fear of mental illness, in particularly for yourself. Going mentally ill means that you will fall down in this race. They've convinced us, and we're in this competitive race. We're not. You see, even this is deteriorating very, very fast. So I remember back in the 70s that there was more acceptance in the psychiatric profession that I read papers about, say, young kids doing what they called in those times a radical departure. I don't think they even talk about radical departures anymore, but there was efforts from J.D. Lang and people like that said, young people go to college, and under the pressure of college, they have a breakdown. And then everybody knew that, and the narrative was, we must control that. And then some people came out and said, well, if you look at the results, they actually positive. That these people drop out of college, they have a breakdown and stuff. And for a while, there was a movement to say, this is not bad. It was steamrolled in the 80s. And then basically, when I started in computing, computers, oddly enough, were a refuge for oddballs and cranks and stuff. And there was a lot of leeway to be weird. By the turn of the century, after they'd commoditized computer programming, offshored it to India and stuff, you were not allowed to be odd anymore. And now if you go into a computer thing, is basically you have a certain kind of lobotomized Vogon, but no characters anymore, none of the oddball stuff. It's been yeah, it's tragic in a way. It's the guy's.
But that's right across the whole
lobotomized.
society. We've got that everywhere, though, now in society. This
Yeah.
complete absence of idiosyncratic.
Yeah.
You know, everything is cookie cutter.
But you see, this is the value of the ARG and the way I'm trying to steer it. You see, it's because an ARG is a place where you can go absolutely nuts with an excuse. So if we can get to the point where we have a currency in the ARG, we can actually support people while they go nuts. You see, the ARG is the digital online modern version of the shamanic cave. Where I mean, look at the guys in the Capitol riot. I mean, nobody knows whether those guys were fucking barking mad, but it's legit. That you know, shaman guy, and all of that stuff is you can in LARPing and, you know, live action role playing and stuff is an ARG is deliberately absurdist and wacky. There's tremendous protection for people to go nuts, and we can protect them too. But if you have a currency as well, that's hugely powerful, because right in the middle of it is you don't have to. If we could get to a stage where the ARG was self-supporting, you could support yourself without having to go into a job and be a wage slave, which is where you most vulnerable to basically getting sectioned or something like that. So I think basically there's a lot of protection in an ARG. We must look deeper into it, I have a clear vision in my head of how it can be done, but I'm sure you can see it now because QAnon. Oh, fuck. Beat me to it. Yeah. I was trying to, you see, those guys beat me to it because they had funding. They had like 4 million and stuff. But if anybody knows, you know, Putin or Xi Jinping or them, you know, it's like, okay, we'll take some money, dudes. It's like, we're not proud. That country just, you know, up above the parallel line there, you know, with the guy with the square haircut. That country is like, I'll take the money, dudes. It's like, you want to see this house of cards come down? I want to see this house of cards come down. Send me the fucking money, dudes. I will do it. But those guys had that was an operation that was funded with about 4 million. We can do this, but it's very hard to bootstrap it from fuck all, and that's unfortunately where we're at. But if you know, yeah, unfortunately these things need to be funded. It's just. Do
you think with the ARG we could appeal to like millennials or Gen Z, Gen X, because they love, like, you know, these games, inside worlds, you know, all online, you know, where they play for, you know, these tokens where they have, you know, they buy avatars, they spend hundreds or thousands on, you know, just some digital token thing. I mean, you could definitely.
That was my intent.
That's what
my intent. I've been working on this since 2012, and my intent was deliberately that I saw that was where to reach them. But my problem is that I can't. Their standards are very high. You know, I mean, I put like everything into the stuff I do, and it's very amateurish. So it's the Institute and the ARG game. It is allowable for it to be a bit amateurish, but unfortunately, more and more people are realizing this format, and this recent Capitol riot thing has showed the value of all of this. So there are more and more people getting in on the game, and so it's very polished, and the games take a lot of money. So you can kind of do a kind of Blair Witch Project and get people involved because it's unusual. One of the things that I think the mainstream will fall down on is the fact that it's too PG and it's too polished and it's too fake. So, you know, that we have the advantage of we can be authentic because we can go to places where corporate America can't go to and stuff. So we can be genuinely rebellious, which and far more edgy than they can, and that's a strength. But the kids are being trained to avoid the edgy stuff. The establishment realizes the power of this now, and they're working hard to kind of steer them away and warn the kids away and stuff. But it's counterproductive because we become forbidden fruit, and so we have to understand what forbidden fruit is for millennials and stuff, and try and understand how to get to them.
Forbidden fruit is the fruit of knowledge.
Yeah. The reason why they got chucked out of the Garden of Eden is because they ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and so especially but you remember who wrote the Bible is Satan, and everything's inverted. It's the way to get back into the Garden of Eden is to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So the serpent leads you back into the garden.
That's why you put Orpheus on that video with that guy going through the mirror. And this is a beautiful movie. If ever you can see it again, a movie made in the 50s, The Descent to Hell, in a contemporary setting of Orpheus. And it's just, I'm so happy to see you put that on the video.
Our minds know all this program, right? Our minds, I think that this is natural. This rebirth, this death in life and rebirth, this metamorphosis is natural to us. We actually, our minds know it, and so you know that walking through the mirror is our recognition. It's kind of a folk memory of this process. So
I think I know how to reach to millennials, because I mean, myself, there's this narrative that they have to go through life in a certain way. So like, you know, go to school, college, and it's their form of success. And so I think an approach we can take is the fruit could be liberation, because they feel like they have to conform to the rules of society, and if they choose another route, it's a dangerous route and they don't want to risk. So they'd rather play the safe way, and they think it's the only way. I mean, that's the kind of thing I'm seeing.
Yeah, I've seen it too. So with I had this week, in fact, my daughter's she's 19 in college, first year in college, under tremendous pressure, like all these kids are. And you know, I'm telling her, like, you know, we're all fucking doomed. It's like, don't do anything that you expect some secondary result. You know, if you go into college thinking, well, that's a meal ticket and you have to do it because otherwise you'll be fucked later on, and so like that story was dead in the 50s. So don't you perpetuating a fucking myth that's gonna hurt your generation. So, but my son, who's about 20, he was putting this mainstream pressure on her, driving her to tears, saying you've got to, you know, work harder in college and you can't drop out. And so it's like, of course you can drop out. Don't be stupid. It's like, you honestly, what are you doing there in this, like, the final days of this fucking planet? You're gonna sit there doing something you hate, or so basically go and do something you fucking like. The relief for her was instant. And basically then she could cope with a lot more. She cut down everything, suddenly way happier. But I think that is the key, is the kids are putting more and more pressure on themselves, and the pressure cooker is building. And as times get shitter, we can leverage that, because basically we can say, we're doomed. You don't have to do veganism. You can fly as much as you like. We're fucked. Have a ball. And that's forbidden fruit. Yeah.
Plus, there'll be so many, you know, young kids that are going to be messed up for education, not having education, no jobs. I mean, like now with the pandemic and the economic crisis, which is just on the horizon. I mean, there's not going to be any jobs for all these people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be coming in waves, so we should be we kind of should be preparing for basically, you know, I feel like a MASH unit that basically just been told that the battle started, and like thinking, oh Christ, the choppers are going to be coming and bringing them in more droves than we can handle pretty shortly. I feel like terribly unequipped medically, very few personnel, and thinking, oh, there are waves of these guys coming in soon. Well, so anybody want to say anything else? But I think we should cut it off there.
Yeah, it's a couple of hours. Yeah, that's great, Hugh. Thanks for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, nah, it's too cultish to do the exercise. But guys, if you remember that, what I'd say is, after this, do the exercise, and just after we cut off the camera, do the exercise, and then yeah. Take refuge in that, right? You indulge yourself. You're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
You see, I'm putting the pressure on you. I'm not really sure how to give you the relief. It's not easy online because it's completely alien cortex, and the alien cortex is kind of a dystopia. So I've only just recently learned from you guys that it's even possible to actually put pressure on people online. I thought it was all infotainment and very superficial, but I'm learning that it's actually more powerful than I thought. The bit I don't know how to, you see, what you would normally, if this was the normal run-of-the-mill in the traditional way, you would get your relief in from a number of ways, but they would generally be in person in an ashram. You would be doing housework, you would be doing gardening, you would be doing exercises with your hands, group exercises, things even like sounding together, listening to music together, playing music, doing art, all the kind of things. You would be doing those together. And you get this kind of golden aura. If you've ever been into an ashram or something, you just like feel giddy with the peace and the birds and stuff, and just that atmosphere. Now that atmosphere is done with a lot of elbow grease and polish, a lot of wax on, wax off. I haven't really figured out how to do it in online. But we must. I've got an idea. If we can get there, we could get there by doing tasks and things. The vision I have for the ARG is if we have a currency and we can set tasks for people and pay them in Geodo and get them to do tasks like that. So basically, without them realizing it, you give them a task. It's basically you guide them to do something on their own time, which would be exactly what you would do in, say, a Buddhist ashram or something like that. Basically find a bell, polish the bell, and send me a video of you while you polish it, and do that for an hour, and just just those kind of menial physical tasks with a bit of guidance and stuff. I think it could be done, but I need some help on that.
How about synchronized house cleaning, synchronized dishwashing, and we would put ourselves online while we do our 1730 UTC.
No, that is fucking excellent.
Yeah. And I would add there's something to not forget, even in ashrams and in other places like that, is the care of the body, the physical fitness, the food. I mean, we talk about our exercises there, but I mean, we need to be in top physical form at the moment. For not just at the moment, but now more than ever.
But physical exercises too. You do the James Becker online. People are doing that, right?
Yeah, but even if we do an exercise like an emergency first aid exercise after this, we should also not forget that we need to get our muscles in order, our legs strong, you know, our lungs breathing fresh air, and it's all good to sit and think, but you know, you need to physically be very, very fit at the moment. Very, very.
You know, it's fucking excellent. I'm just having visions of all the shit that you could actually do this way. You know?
Yeah.
I agree. Like that scene in the Terminator with Linda Hamilton doing push-ups or pull-ups while she was in jail. You know, you could
but
ask
how
people to send
nice that
videos of what they did.
everybody meets at a time online and does it together. It's like, wow.
Hmm?
I think that's what the kids are doing for online classes. My niece sends videos of herself reciting a poem. She sends it to the teacher.
Oh yeah, but I know some people who are dancing online together.
Yeah, people are dancing and doing stuff on. Yeah. Yeah, we must. You know, in fact, we could just meet up on somebody else's, since other people are doing it. Could just find people and just.
Yeah, or eating a peach together.
Yeah.
Very ripe. The ripeness is all.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
rough. There's David Sendak, you know, the guy who did the kids' books.
Oh yes, the beautiful books.
Morris
Where the white things are.
It's Maurice Sendak, yeah.
Maurice Sendak.
Sendak.
Yeah, and he actually wrote a bit about the ripeness is all, and particularly Tennyson. Tennyson wrote about that, eating a peach, and just basically how erotic it was. It's just like, yeah, it was straight out of that. Yeah, you look at Google Maurice Sendak and the ripeness is all in peach. Yeah. Oh, there's such a lot to do, but yeah. All right. Well, I think we should round it off there.
Yep.
All right.
So
Thanks,
we say you got used to stay 3 hours, so now like what?
And and it's just a word to Marty is Marty, hang in there, man. It's like yeah. It's like we all want to live in a world where gay people are not prosecuted, and the first thing to do is just like lose that label. No one's gay. Gay is something, you know, you do, and in this get rid of the labels, we'll never get to a free society.
I remember once a book I was browsing through at a secondhand, you know, one of those fates where people sell all sorts of old junk and that. And I leafed through the book, and it had a picture of various protest movements during the 1960s and that kind of thing. And one of them was a protest for gay liberation. But the interesting thing was that one of the most prominent placards being held up in the front of the group simply said, "I am a human sexual." And I thought that placard by itself made more sense than all that guy had completely summed it up, you know.
But one better is to say we are all human sexuals.
Yeah, well, yes, one better, yeah, to say we, yeah. Well, I mean,
I
guess it was
that little
implied.
I is the problem there.
The I, yeah. But still, I felt he'd done a little miracle to get even that far, to get away from.
Very, very commendable, but it's that little I is the bitch.
That I, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. But well, that's a very good note to end on, and I'm glad we actually got somewhere. That I gotta say, if Marty's listening, that his reaction alone made talking to Keith worthwhile for me. Yeah, I got everything I wanted out of it by your reaction. So thank you very much. All right. Well, on that note.
Okay.
All right.
Bye then. See you.
And we'll see you Friday.
Thanks to all.